let me bring in some of my colleagues here to ask questions. Maybe I can start with Keith.
Good morning from the Philippines, Miss Ambassador.
Morning.
Morning. My first question to you is, Philippines is struggling to secure enough vaccines for its population. So I understand Denmark has stopped the use of AstraZeneca vaccines, and the country is now in discussion with other countries over exchanging its shelved AstraZeneca vaccines with other brands. May we know if you also consider donating these vaccines to ally countries, including the Philippines, ma'am? Because here in the Philippines, we allow the use of AstraZeneca. Thank you.
In the first place, the AstraZeneca vaccines of Denmark has been going to the northern part of Germany. We have a very close cooperation because we have a Danish minority in the northern part of Germany. As it has been in all parts of Europe, boundaries went back and forth according to the many wars that have been fought. And it's only in 1920, last year it was 100 years ago, that our frontier with Germany had found its final position. And as something that could be picked up by other countries. It was done by a referendum. It was after the First World War. And as you know, the Treaty of Versailles was tough on Germany. So basically, Denmark got the offer that we could consider going back to where Denmark used to go to, which was all the way down to Hamburg. If you look at old maps of Denmark, Denmark actually goes almost down to Hamburg. But the wise decision was made that we would have a referendum so that the peoples could decide whether they would go with Germany or whether they wanted to go to Denmark. And the northern part of that piece of land voted for Denmark. They had been Danish till 1864 when we lost that part of the country in a war with Germany. And they still felt that they wanted to go back to Denmark. But the two-thirds, the southern parts, two-thirds of that piece of land voted for Germany, which means that we have a small German minority in Denmark, and we have, and in Germany there's a small Danish minority, and for good neighbor reasons, that is where that vaccine is going in the first place.
All right, I understand, ma'am.
But we are part of the COVAX initiative, so it's not that we are not within the global efforts to distribute vaccines. So it goes to all parts of the world. So we are part of the COVAX.
So what vaccines are available now in Denmark?
Moderna and Pfizer are the ones that are being used now.
I see.
And then they are looking into Johnson and Johnson. And AstraZeneca has been put on hold.
I see. Right.
Ma'am, the Philippines has filed numerous diplomatic protests against China just recently over the deployment of suspected Chinese maritime militia vessels in the West Philippine Sea. Countries have since backed the Philippines, on the sea row. The U.S. for one, they expressed support to the filing of the diplomatic protests. May we know, ma'am, where Denmark stands on the issue? Where do you stand?
Well, the EU, by way of the EU delegation here in the Philippines, issued, made a tweet about it. Most of the comments came out by tweet. But we stand on a rule-based approach to the use of the sea. So we go by the decisions. We follow the rules. We want a rules-based approach to the use of the seas, and that's also, of course, how the seas are being used for commercial purposes, because we know that the largest or the most crowded waters now are actually not the Atlantic as it used to be, but it's between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. So all the straits, and they are narrow, some of them, that can be sailed on are of course of importance to us also, holding, for example, the world's biggest container company, Maersk, is a Danish company. So of course it's of importance to us.
Right. I wonder, Ambassador, you mentioned earlier the Horn of Africa. I mean, we're both maritime countries. I wonder if that whole issue with the West Philippine Sea is impacting any Danish shipping companies or the Danish economy at all. Is it a concern?
I mean, so far, commercial ships have not been held back from sailing the waters. So at this stage, not in a direct way, but as I say, it's of course something that is of great
Right.
importance to us. The cooperation that, for example, takes place in IMO, the International Maritime Organization, we are very active there. So we are very active in all the fora, also within the United Nations and so forth, that relates to the sea.
Right. Faye, do you have some questions?
On the recently launched EU strategy for cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, I just want to know what are the specific goals of the strategy and what could this mean for the relations, specifically the business and trade relations between Denmark and the Philippines in the future, and how could this be of aid in the economic growth of both countries? Thank you.
Well, of course, it's very much in the making still, the Indo-Pacific strategy. But of course, it aims directly towards the importance of this whole area, Southeast Asia and beyond, and the interest in our peaceful cooperation, EU, with Asia, which will be to the benefit of our countries and of your countries. We are a small, open economy as a country, Denmark. So we are all for multilateral cooperation. A small country like ours survive not by closing the borders, but by opening the borders and by furthering international cooperation. And that goes also for that initiative, which we wholeheartedly support. And so we do it within the cooperation of EU, and it's very important for us, our membership of the EU. And of course, also, hopefully it also has an impact on the bilateral commercial and political relations between specifically our two countries.
I just want to ask Ambassador, what are the embassy's plans that are geared towards stimulating the trade relation between Denmark and the Philippines, and what industries are you looking to specifically boost?
Well, trade relations are of great importance to us. So we have a commercial section within the embassy. And as we were talking about before, I mean, Danish companies, we are active in very many ways of walks of life. So we have a diversified production in Denmark. But there is, and we have some 80 companies that are active here in the Philippines already, and some are producing here. And some are exporting to here, and some are constructing here. If you have like the engineering companies, the largest export article from Denmark right now are within pharmaceuticals and medicine. But as we talked about, we are very interested in looking into what is sustainable development, what is renewable energies, what is energy efficiency. We have knowledge which is really at the forefront of this field, and it's something that we see expanding in many other countries in Southeast Asia. So Philippines is definitely one of the places where we would like to see that cooperation taking place already. And as I said, we are already in that cooperation, so we want to strengthen it.
Carmela, would you like to ask
Yes.
your questions?
Yes. Good morning, Ambassador.
Good morning.
I'm the Maritime Editor of Manila Times, and I have been a maritime journalist for more than 2 decades now. So this is quite a good chance for me to actually ask a few questions. I don't have the exact number right now, but Denmark is one of the biggest employer of Filipino seafarers for decades. I cannot emphasize this enough. One of the world's biggest company, the Moller-Maersk, employs a majority of Filipinos to man their ships globally. taking into account as well the fact that Danish ship owners transport approximately 10% of the global trade. That's how Danish shipping is important to our crewing and manning industry in the Philippines, an industry that remits $7 billion annually to the national coffers. My question is, how has the pandemic impacted the deployment of Filipino seafarers to Danish-owned and managed ships? Maybe the rest I'll ask a little bit later after you answer this one.
Yeah, I guess people are wondering, is your embassy open to give out the visas because of the pandemic?
Yes, we do have a big problem, sir, with crew change and things like that.
Right.
I just want to hear from the ambassador if, how has this impacted the deployment, because one of our biggest employers really are Danish ship owners.
Companies, yeah.
No, I can tell you we are open for business. I can reassure you. But yes, of course, that when suddenly everything closed down in March last year, it caught everybody off guard. And of course, it caused huge problems for the shipping industry and for the people that either could not come to their ships or could not get off the ships that they had been on for such a long time. So that was one of the first priorities of the Danish government, that was to see we have to keep crew change going. So very rapidly, they set up a system whereby crew change could take place by way of Denmark. I mean, although Philippine seafarers, and we estimate that some 10,000 Filipino seafarers are on board Danish ships employed by Danish ship owners. We mentioned Maersk, but of course there are many other Danish ship owners also.
Right.
So the Ship Owner Association of Denmark and the government agreed that something has to be done so that we can keep crew change happening, and also that we make Denmark then a special port for the crew change, which normally can take place anywhere in the world. It's just a Danish ship that if it's a Filipino seafarer, but he or she could board in any other port than a Danish caller port. So that was the first thing, to make sure that these things could happen. And as soon as we opened up our embassy again, because we, of course, like everybody else, were busy evacuating Danes and then trying to figure out how we would do things. But one of the first things that we got back on track was actually the handling of seafarer visas. Many other visas, it was simply impossible because borders are closed and so forth. So from June, we were back on track with processing seafarer visas. And we are, if we look at Danish embassies globally, this embassy is by far the embassy that processed most seafarer visas last year. I mean, we are on a general basis, but last year, also because the Philippine authorities were super cooperative in making the exemptions that were needed for their people to travel to the ship. So we had a very fine cooperation with Marina to find the necessary flexibility to make this happen. It has also meant that we have had really, sometimes work comes like the ketchup bottle effect, because then we had to process a lot of visa for a group of people going to a ship, right? So it comes in bulks, and then we're working like this. We always make sure that we prioritize the seafarer visa, so we make sure that the seafarers can get to their ships. And I think by and large, we have had a very fine cooperation with the ship owners that also have done their part, having people quarantined so they were clear, doing the test. And that's why it has to be like this. Because once you're clear, you need to go, you need to find your ship wherever it is and so forth. So the logistics of it are huge. So we know that when that application comes, we have to be speedy in processing it. And by and large, it has worked very fine. Also at one stage, it was about a chartered plane that should take out the seafarers. Normally they go by commercial airlines, but here we needed a chartered plane. And we also, with fine cooperation with your authorities, were able to get the landing permission and everything else that goes in with taking down a plane and getting it out again. So I can only say it's been a very smooth cooperation, and we have done everything we can to make sure that the seafarers could get to their ships and could get back in again.
That's very interesting. Carmela, do you have some more?
Yes, another is the supposed or alleged non-acceptance of Sinovac in Europe. This was based on what some of the mining companies here in the Philippines are saying. Sinovac is being given here in the Philippines, especially among mining agencies. Would you know if these shipping companies from Denmark would be providing a list of your allowed vaccines to the mining agencies representing them here in the country?
I'm not sure that I have a complete answer to your question, but I have not heard that it should be a problem, if I understand your question correctly, that it has been said, no, you have been vaccinated by Sinovac, and that is not accepted. I have not heard that that should be the case, actually. I think we also just at the beginning at a new challenge, which is people have been vaccinated. What kind of document do they have for their vaccination? What kind of access to the world does that give them, by the way? If a Dane has been fully vaccinated, can he and she then claim, I want to go everywhere in the world because now I'm vaccinated? So I think we are just starting with the next challenges, which are, how do we coordinate the various types of vaccines, the documents that we provide as proof of full vaccination and so forth. But I know that vaccination is also at the top of the list for the ship owners. They are doing very much to assure that staff is being vaccinated also.
I heard that in your country that you're using this mobile application, a sort of like a vaccine passport. Is that on trial, or is it rolled out, or how does that work? Is it only for Danish citizens, or are you also requiring foreigners working there or visiting to register to that application? It's quite interesting because it's something that we could use here as well.
Yeah, I'll come back to what I said at the beginning, that we have a very well-functioning public healthcare system, which means there's only one portal. So we also do that, if I can say, in peacetime. If I just have been going to my doctor for a normal examination and I'm waiting for a result or the comment of the doctor, it's that same platform where I will go and get my result. So if I've been doing some kind of other test or whatever, I always log into, it's called Health DK. And we all know that we log in with our personal number and then we get the results. So when we have been doing COVID tests, we would get our results in that public platform, all of us. And now that people have been vaccinated, they can so when I have been traveling, I have been downloading the result of my COVID tests from that platform, and I could print it out and I could show it at the airport, right? And now that people have been vaccinated, it's the same thing. That COVID passport is available on that platform. And that platform is for all people that are residing legally in Denmark. So also if you're a foreigner and living in Denmark, you access that same platform, because if you're a foreigner and residing in Denmark, then you become part of the health system, right? And for example, diplomatic personnel in Denmark will also be under that same platform.
Right.
So
how did you address the privacy concerns? Because here in the Philippines, one of the stumbling blocks is government looking into your data, or did you do something different, or just the Danish people are just more trusting of their government than we are?
No. I mean, we have very, very strict rules on that. And for example, when we are processing visas, and the consular cases that we are doing, so these principles apply in a very strict way. But it's only me and the relevant health personnel that can see what is on my platform. Nobody else can access it. And then, of course, it's about trust in digital systems. But it has been one of the strengths for Denmark in our fighting the virus, that we are a very digitalized country. It has helped us a lot with everything that we are doing, and this health platform has really been good.
My last question, and it's very important. One of the biggest issue here in the Philippine maritime sector is the impending result of the EMSA report about the Philippines. The
Yes.
European Maritime Safety Agency, it's a
Yes.
European Union agency charged with reducing the risk of maritime accident, maritime pollution. Very important for the Philippines. What will the Danish shipping company stand? What will be the stand of the Danish shipping companies on EMSA, just in case there will be a negative result for the Philippines? Will they change their Filipino officers on board, considering Danish ship owners are one of the biggest employers of the Filipinos? Thank you.
In the first place, we have not seen the report yet. It has not reached the national level yet, but so it will be a decision that will be made only by the fall, when we know the report. I know that it was finalized February, March. And then it will be a decision that we have to follow, whatever the decision is. So it's not a voluntary thing when we come to that, because it's within what we are doing as EU. So let's hope that the findings are such and the possibilities are such that we can continue cooperating in the way that we have been cooperating. And anyway, everything that is in force already and running, those contracts will keep running. But it is very important for maritime safety that standards are high. We know how much traffic we see in international waters. We know how big these ships are. We can just, I don't know if it was an accident or what happened, but we had this ship blocking the Suez Canal for how long? And it didn't cost lives, but in worse situation, it can cost human lives. It can mean ecological disasters. So we simply need very, very high standards for the international shipping. And that's, of course, what these EMSA reports, which is not only about the Philippines, but about any country that provides sailors, is about. And also, we have very high standards for the Danish ships. It has always, and most Danish ships sail under the Danish flag and adhere to that strict control also.
It's interesting, Ambassador. You mentioned, let me circle back a little bit. You mentioned that you guys, or the embassy is fairly new, but the embassy had been here before,
Yeah.
right? And then it returned. But what brought you back? I mean, I guess the question has to do with where does the Philippines figure in your foreign policy, or maybe even to a greater extent, where does ASEAN fall in the Danish foreign policy?
Yeah. Ideally, I can tell you, as a civil servant and with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for so long, we would wish to be everywhere, right. Like the big countries. Like we look at them and they have embassies everywhere, and we are, let's face it, slightly envious, because that is the best way to work together. That is when we have representatives. So we are also very, very happy that we could open up here again, and the Philippines opened in Denmark. There is no doubt that this region, the whole ASEAN region, is of great interest, because it is a driver of much what will be going on. And we also, of course, looking strategically at it, as would the Philippines be, as to where you open or close your embassies. I think most countries that open up here are very aware also of the economic potential of this country. I mean, the growth rates have been very impressive for a number of years. And of course, COVID is making a dent in that.
Yeah.
And the wave that we are in right now is, unfortunately, if we look at the latest news, it is that expectations are being downgraded again. But even so, it's still impressive growth that this country has. It's a growing population. It's a high population. So there are commercial aspects to it. It's an important region if we look at it politically. We're just talking Indo-Pacific. And then, of course, we also have the people aspect, the many Philippines that work on Danish ship or on Danish soil. And the other way around, we actually have quite a number of Danes that live in the Philippines. So that is something that we have seen growing, and then we react to it. We have Filipinos all over the Danish kingdom. I don't know if you know, but there are some 200 Filipinos living in Nuuk in Greenland.
Wow.
And in the Faroe Islands as well.
One of them was our former editor. Unfortunately, she got married to a Danish fellow, and she's happily living in Copenhagen now.
Yes, but that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Well,
and
I
I don't.
So, but
No, of course for you. But then with globalization, I mean, you have these global nomads. They plug in wherever, and then they work from there.
You mentioned Greenland. Is it definitive? It's not for sale to the United States?
It's not for sale. But that caused a small problem when that sales offer or buyer's offer came out. And they, I don't know if you know that 2 years ago, Lucky Blanco released a film called Nuuk. Which takes place in Greenland with Angie Dixon in one of the leading roles.
Interesting! I should see that.
Yeah, well, we should send you a link, and it aired. We aired it at the Danish Film Festival here. A very good film actually, and he had just been to the Faroe Islands completing another film, which will be released on Netflix in August or September, I think. So we have a very good cooperation. So you know that is the beauty of this diplomatic work or international relations, is that they pop up where you maybe did not think of it.
That is very interesting.
So always be prepared for the possibilities that are there.
How would you like Filipinos to think of Denmark, or when Filipinos think about Denmark, what images would you like them to see in their mind's eye? What would be the impressions that we should have?
Yeah, I would like you to think of us as a very stable democracy, which has functioned very well for us, and we have a consensus-based democracy because we have an array of political parties, even if we're a small country. We very seldom have a prime minister who has a majority. And on one hand, that can, of course, sometimes slow down processes. But on the other hand, as I said, we have a consensus-based ruled country. And I think it's very, very healthy for any democratic process that you cannot just, push through with all your agendas without having to listening to what the other half says. Then it's a country with almost no corruption. We come out on top for the last 10 years, on top of the transparency list, the anti-corruption list, very often sharing with New Zealand. And it also reflects, other than that, we have by and large trustworthy civil servants, which I would like to say I'm one of them. But that high level of trust that I talked about before, which gives an ease in the way of doing things. We also very often asked, how come you are the happiest people in the world? Right now, we are not. Right now, it's Finland. But we also tend to top those lists. And a critic could very easily say, but why? You have terrible weather and you have very high taxes. So why on earth are you happy? But it's also about a high level of trust in society, that you trust your leaders, you trust your neighbor, you trust that the decisions that are made to combat COVID are actually the right ones. You trust that you can go to the hospital if you're sick and you trust that you can get your education. Higher education is for free in Denmark also. So you don't pay for your higher education. And that means that we have a very egalitarian society also, because it's not only the ones that can pay for it that can get in higher education and push through. It's actually everybody that has the capability and the wish to do so. So the American dream can to a very high extent come true in Denmark, I would say. And then, of course, a green and sustainable, a country with a green and sustainable agenda, and then a country that truly believes in international cooperation, bilateral, multilateral, through the organizations that we are a member of. We truly believe that it's a rule-based order that will that should govern the globe.
Well, how is the Philippines perceived in Denmark? I know when most Europeans think of Southeast Asia, Thailand comes to mind because I suppose that's a more popular tourist destination. I don't know if my impression sometimes is that we're not known enough in Europe. I don't know if that's the case in Denmark.
I actually think that you're right in the sense that you're not known enough. If we speak tourism, definitely Thailand has been very sharp at marketing themselves as a country, but also many other countries. But it's not like the Philippines has not made it in the mind of the Danes, and I can vouch for that, because when we had to evacuate Danes last year and get them home, you know, when COVID broke out and everybody was asked to leave wherever they were and to return, and most countries where they were also seeing the benefit of people leaving, then we kept coming out on top of the list of where do we have most Danes stranded. Also because of course there were more Danes stranded in Spain, but they could more easily get home on their own. But it was just amazing how we kept coming out on top, and we actually ended up chartering a plane to take home Danes. After 2 weeks down the line in that conflict, we had a chartered plane that went here in Manila and Cebu to pick up stranded Danes, and we had quite a number of Norwegians and Swedes and Finns and entering that plane also. So. Right. So it is definitely being seen as a new tourist destination. And of course, that has been set back by what has been happening. It's also a difficulty that there are no direct airlines. It always makes it more difficult if you have to touch down somewhere along the road. But I mean, if you have charter companies, then they will come directly. I'm sure that the Philippines as a tourist destination will come back. This is a beautiful, beautiful country. So people will start coming back, but it will take time. We know that and of course you as a country know it more than any, because your tourism industry is suffering the way it is suffering. Of course, Danes are aware, or Europeans maybe, that you have a special history, that you're a Christian country out here in the middle of a region where there are many other predominant religions. The history of it, which is this year that Magellan arrived here. Circumnavigator, yes. And then, of course, we have, as I said, we have many more interpersonal relations now than we had 50 years ago. The globalization has taken us there, with the Philippines working on the Danish ships, but also working mainly in the service sector in Denmark. And then you see what is happening. People start marrying across nationalities and so forth. And the Philippines, the Filipino as a group, as I see it, are always very strong where they go. So we know that the Philippine society in Copenhagen is very strong because they stick together and help each other. And they are seen as a positive element. It's a group that integrates, that is helpful and service-minded, and so I would only see that our relations will be growing, and that we have quite many things that we will see in common as I said, when we talked about the green development, you're also going in that direction. So, and with the strategies that we are developing also within the EU, we will go in the direction of more cooperation. That's definitely what we want.
Well, I hope this will be, the beginning of an even deeper relationship between Denmark and the Philippines. Ambassador, thank you for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to mention? Maybe there's something we haven't asked. I'll leave you with the final word.
I think we have pretty much covered what we wanted to talk about. So I really wish to thank you for having this opportunity to meet, since it has been a very weird situation for me, because normally you arrive in a new country and then you start building up, meeting people. And I just arrived here, and then the world turned upside down. And then we have been finding our ways in communicating in other ways. But it's definitely great to be able to talk about the Danish-Philippine relations. And every time we talk about it, we also take a step towards doing something about it. For the people who are listening in or will be reading the interviews, we are open, and we very much hope that we this way can stimulate the interest for the Danish-Philippine relations also. And yes, things have been very complicated with the COVID, and it will take some time, but we're still there, and we're still in business, both for the visas. For those that can travel, there are still some restrictions, I have to say. It's not like it's suddenly all open, but definitely for the commercial, for the seafarers. And also businesses are still working. We know that they don't give up easily. So we are continuing the work that we're doing.
Ambassador, thank you very much. And please keep us posted on things that happen in your country, in your embassy.
Yeah. Thank you very much.